so the right is basically calling for Don Lemon's head and wants him arrested immediately. Some really scary rhetoric over on Twitter right now, but what else is new? Now stay with me on this because I think I stumbled upon something from the gates of Christian nationalist hell that we need to talk about and is highly relevant to this situation. First, we need to tap into a little bit of history because, well, it's me. In some rural southern and western towns throughout our country's history, there was something called the sheriff preacher, where the sheriff was also a lay preacher, and so God's law and the sheriff's law were essentially the same. It gave him a tremendous amount of moral authority, and this is, of course, very powerful. Have you ever seen the movie The Book of Eli, and you remember how desperate Gary Oldman was to find the Bible because he knew the authority and power it would give him? The same authority behind the Crusades, the Inquisition, you name it. But this one specifically is part of the basis for our country's version of Christian nationalism. Now fast forward to today. There's no Project 2025 for this, but it's one of the many ugly tentacles of the situation. Leading up to 2025, Christian nationalists pushed for something called the officer-shepherd model, reminiscent of the sheriff-preacher model. It's something that runs counter to sanctuary city policies and Catholic and progressive church responses to ICE activity. You might remember at the beginning of 2025, Trump rescinded something called the sensitive locations policy. It was in that mess of executive orders that was signed right away. This long-standing policy banned ICE from operating on church property. But Trump didn't like that. As a result, everywhere from San Bernardino, California to Charlotte, North Carolina, ICE has been operating near or on church properties and in and on religiously run schools and medical facilities. Many Catholic and progressive churches have spoken out harshly against this, doing the work of Jesus that I talked about in my video yesterday. But to the Romans 13 worshipers, where Paul says to obey government, this very Christian stance is in fact the opposite. So they're encouraging their churches to protect ICE and even act as agents of ICE, snitching on their members. They see themselves as protectors defending their flock even though they're doing the opposite. Because to them, whether they know it or not, their flock must be white and must stay in line. And especially if they're not white, they better not say a word. This is a religion as control method which hasn't worked out great historically. My sense is that this pastor that ran the ICE field office locally is just the tip of the iceberg. There are likely churches all over this country that are very unsafe for immigrants. Also, if you guys wouldn't mind going over to my profile and clicking on the link to my Substack and subscribing, I'd really appreciate it.